Okay, hi everybody, we're going to start. So welcome to this event from Select Ireland. This time we're having a country focus on Spain. And we'd like to thank everybody for coming along to today's event, and also for the people who'll be watching this after the event. We had a number of emails from agents today that are going to catch up with this event online. So we will post this on YouTube later on this evening, and we will send the link out to everybody so you'll be able to watch the event if you haven't been able to see it live. And we thank you for watching and communicating with us today. As we're focusing on Spain, it's a country that we know well and a country that knows us well. So in our usual webinars, we normally introduce the country, Ireland, and the destination. But today's webinar is going to be slightly different in that we're just going to talk about events that are happening in Ireland at the moment and how things are shaping up for 2022, as it's a market that is well understood and understands us well. And we're happy to receive any questions during the webinar, but also feel free to contact any of the schools who are here today afterwards, and we're happy to follow up with you. I'm going to start off then with an introduction from Jonathan, who's at Centre of English Studies. Many of you will already know Jonathan, and he's going to talk to you a little bit about Select Ireland, what it is, about its formation, and what has brought us here to this webinar today, and what our plans are for the future. So Jonathan, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thanks, Patrick. Yeah. As I said to Marty Carmen, I think it's very pertinent because I'm very bold, and I'm sitting doing this in Marbella. Which is it was a welcome relief. I was and I'll follow on from I was with a lot of agents last week in Madrid, and there was a huge level of positivity, which was really exciting to hear, that there's groups already being booked in, and groups for the summer being booked in right across the board. So, and I know it's not just for CES, it's for lots of the Select schools. And that's very heartening to hear. And anybody I've spoken to about Select is also excited about the prospect. So what exactly is said prospect of Select? Well, July 2019 was when we initially met. And basically, it was a group of schools that got together, probably some of the larger schools in the country, who were happy with what was going on in MEI, but we could obviously see that there was massive potential for us to improve on the product. So we got together as a marketing group, kind of informally, and had wonderful plans that were going to take shape and be processed in 2020, and things got slightly away from us. But it also became a fantastic forum for all the schools involved. The schools in Dublin, you've got Atlas, ATC, and Alan, the guys are here on the call. Atlas, ATC, the Horner School, Centre of English Studies. And in Cork, you've got Bridge Mills, Atlantic, and in Cork, you've got CEC, Mark Cullen, and Joel in ASET. And I know I've missed somebody. Who did I miss? Emerald, jeepers almighty, Emerald. Scarlett's there. And during the pandemic, initially, actually, I think that's where we gained a huge amount being part of Select, was that we were able to talk amongst each other sensibly about what was going on, how we were dealing with it, what we were going to do, how we were going to do it, when did we reopen, how could you reopen, all of these questions that schools on their own would have found very difficult to answer. But the Select group came together, and now we're all still very much competitors, but there was a coming together like has not been seen before in Ireland, in terms of that. There's a lot of information sharing because people around the table understood that whatever was said at the table was confidential, and that proved very much positive. We had all these plans which had to get shelved, so we are planning an official launch date on the 18th, and I'm sure many of our colleagues from in Spain will join us on that day. And then, as well as inward bound FAM trips, and hopefully possibly a workshop next year just for the Select schools, we're also going to do a lot of things, professional development sessions for the Select staff, but also information sessions. So going forward, we're going to have each of our directors of studies give a discussion on a specific topic that we're going to leave that open, so that anybody that has an interest can jump in. So it's a coming together of and we need to be very careful, because again, sometimes people take it the wrong way. We are a group of some, and I state some of the best schools in the country. We all achieve to meet the highest possible standards. Most of the schools in Select, or all of the schools in Select, excuse me, are either members of Equals or Quality English or YALC, or exam centres, etc., etc. So I mean, really, it's the top end of the market in the English language world in Ireland, and we're very lucky because, as I said, during quite possibly the most difficult period, I think, in anybody's trading history, there was a coming together of like-minded individuals, and I think we all helped each other get through it, which was hugely beneficial. And I think the potential for us to take things like fam trips, things like virtual presentations to the next level has been shown that we can do it very well already. And I'm very much looking forward to the virtual launch that's going to be done by the Consul General, Owen Bennis from Sao Paulo, from the Irish Embassy. And then hopefully inward fam trips when we feel it's comfortable and safe to do so.
Thank you, Jonathan. That's great. Thank you very much. Okay, if I could pass across then to Mark Sheeran. Mark, we'd asked to join us today. He's worked with us on some previous events, and Mark is the Managing Director at GuardMe International Insurance Solutions Limited. We just wanted to talk a little bit about insurance and student travel for Travel to Ireland in 2022. So Mark, if I can hand over to you.
Sure, thanks, Patrick. Okay, I'll just share my screen here, folks. I have a few slides maybe we could work through. And bear with me, I've actually never done this on Zoom. I'm normally on Microsoft Teams. How's that? Can everyone see a normal picture? Okay, I've done this before, and what I meant to see, the director's view or whatever, ended up on everyone else's screen. So if this is good for you, good for me. Okay, so thank you, Patrick. My name is Mark Sheeran. I'm, yes, the Managing Director of the Irish company of GuardMe. Some of you might be familiar with GuardMe before. And the background is we're a almost 25-year-old company, originated from Canada, where the head office is, about 100-person organization. And all we do, we're specialists in, is student insurance. We're not general brokers. What we do is student insurance. So we have an office in Spain, actually, which is relative today because it means that we can work with Spanish agents and schools, etc. And also we work with Irish schools and many, many schools around Europe and across the world. So I'm conscious of time today, so I won't talk too long on things, and I'll try and speak slowly because I'm known to speak fast. So the topics I thought we might try and get through today is GuardMe insurance plans, give you a little insight of what insurance we offer, then what type of cover is available, and what's the price of it, and how does COVID-19 cover work, because that's obviously extremely topical at the moment, and then a little bit on just how to work with us and what that involves. So the insurance plans that are available, I suppose students who are coming to Ireland, there's, depending where the students are originating from, in this case we're talking Spain, there's a need for insurance, and depending, there can be a visa requirement as well. At the moment in Ireland, there's three policies available. The first one here on your screen, AXA Multi-Risk Ireland, is only available to Irish schools and agencies. So those based in Ireland with billing addresses in Ireland, okay? And I put it here because there may be instances where perhaps Spanish agents may prefer for an Irish school to purchase the insurance on their behalf. And if that's the case, this tends to be the most popular policy available. It's not necessarily the only one, but this is the one that tends to be most popular. And I'll talk you through what insurance a student would have then if the school in Ireland or agency was to purchase this on their behalf. The next two insurance policies are available to, of course, to Irish schools, but they're also available. These are the two that are available to Spanish-based entities, AXA Multi-Risk and AXA Multi-Risk and Cancellation. Okay, and they're sort of tiered. This one here would have the least amount of cover, but it's the most popular in Ireland. It fits the needs, as we'll talk through now in a moment, quite well. This product here, AXA Multi-Risk, has everything the top product has. and it has a little bit more that I'll talk through. And then the third one here with cancellation has everything the middle product has, AXA multi-risk, but it also includes cancellation cover, which has a lot to it. And I'll try and give you a little debrief on that at this talk. So in the middle, at the top policy, AXA multi-risk Ireland, if an Irish school purchases this on behalf of a student from Spain, it covers medical. And that would mean everything involved in medical illness from the moment a student begins their trip. When they close the door behind them, leave their home, and they begin to come to Ireland, they'll be covered for anything medical related. There's also third-party liability cover if they were to damage somebody else's property by accident, etc. Okay, the price of that product is 3 months €35, 8 months €60, and 12 months €75. And it can be renewed year after year. Now, there is another element here with health insurance, but I won't have time to talk about that today. But for now, these policies will meet the needs of any Spanish student traveling to Ireland. If the Spanish agents prefer to purchase the policies themselves for their own commercial reasons, AXA Multi-Risk has everything AXA Multi-Risk Ireland has. It has a little bit more, and I'll show you in the next page exactly what that is. Really, the difference is the Irish product has excess. It has a co-payment, as it's known in Spain, of €80, which means that for every claim, the student should pay €80 towards the claim. So if there's an accident for €70 worth, a small bill, there'd be no point claiming because the student would have to pay €80 towards that. That's the co-payment. And AXA multi-risk, no excess, no co-payments. It also includes, I said, a little bit more cover, which is curtailment, which is cutting short your trip. And that could be at the beginning of your trip when you arrive at the airport, and lo and behold, the student's diagnosed with COVID at the airport. Let's say that would mean there could be opportunity for that student to claim. And I'll go through that a bit more. Missed flights and missed baggage, kind of things that can happen at the beginning of their trip on their way to Ireland. That's the type of cover there. It's 74 cents per day. And don't worry, I can follow up with any person here who wants this information. There's plenty more, and I'll be happy to share it in email. My details will follow. And an AXA multi-risk and cancellation. This product is everything we just spoke about there. Again, no co-payments, etc., but it also includes cancellation cover. And that is cover for the period before the student closes the door behind them and begins to come to Ireland. It's cover from the moment it's booked with us until the moment they begin their journey. And I'll talk about what that means and what type of cover could be there, okay? And that's 90 cents per day. So I'll have to work on getting a better graphic so you guys can probably see it. If you can't read it, I can talk you through it anyway, just in general. The green bit here is the Irish product I spoke about. So this is included in all the policies. This is medical, all medical cover, up to 10 million. So there's more than enough cover there for any medical incident that could ever occur. And then I mentioned there's personal liability as well for 2 million. So there's more than enough cover here than could ever be needed. There's also a hospital benefit where we would pay the student for every 24 hours, we paid them €20 worth for a night in the hospital every day, in addition to paying their hospital costs, of course. Then the middle product, AXA multi-risk, we spoke about that this would be for Spanish agents more so who might avail of it. This would include, as I said, baggage, missed flights, delayed flights, and then curtailment, cutting short your trip, having to come home. COVID could be a reason for having to come home. And I'll speak about COVID in a moment. And then the cancellation product has everything on this page, including that above, the cancellation cover, which covers up to €7,500. So if a student was, let's say, good to come to Ireland the day before their trip, they're diagnosed with COVID, or they're just sick with any illness and they physically can't travel, or even indeed a sibling or a parent is sick, very sick, we'll say, they could, in theory, claim for that up to €7,500 for any of the costs involved with their academic trip. Okay, there's more details to this I could talk about again, but that's in essence what it means. So COVID-19 cover. COVID-19 cover, basically just to put it in the caveat, because I'm going to speak about what is available, just first of all to say, never in any travel policy that exists would a person be covered for traveling in against travel advice. This is really important to note. At the moment, travel advice is very good between Ireland and Spain, no issue at all, bar having your European digital cert and your PCR test if necessary, etc. Right? But if the advice changes for any reason in the future and says Ireland is not a good place to travel to, according to the Spanish Department of Foreign Affairs, we'll say, then a student should not travel, obviously, because they would be void of all cover. Just want to say that. That's important. That goes for you and I for our own travel policies too. Okay. What is covered? The good news is medical, cancellation, and curtailment will be covered for COVID-19. And I'll speak about what that means now. For medical cover, a student will be covered for medical treatment if they're diagnosed with COVID-19. Okay. If they're forced to quarantine upon arrival is what that means. they would be covered as well. If they arrived in Ireland, they're diagnosed all of a sudden with COVID-19, they have to quarantine. It's different from isolation. They would be covered. And repatriation, like any other illness or disease that a student had, they would be paid to be brought home to their home country. Additional accommodation, if you contract COVID-19, if you're unable to return home as planned. So this example is saying if a student on their last few days of their trip, they're due to fly home on a Friday and they have COVID-19 on the Wednesday before they travel, or indeed they're just a close contact of somebody who has COVID-19, okay, not even officially diagnosed. In that instance, they would have to have been instructed by, say, track and trace, or a doctor, someone of a medical department with authority to do so should say, you need to quarantine, you can't go anywhere. Then that student would be able to claim for accommodation costs for what, 12, 14 days of quarantine, new flights, etc. Okay, so those things will be covered if they're not able to return home as planned. On curtailment, cutting short their trip, if for any reason the government said, look, you have to come home because COVID-19 is out of control, they would be covered for loss of costs. If they were denied boarding at their home country due to being detected symptoms of COVID-19, and if a close relative became very ill with COVID-19, or indeed any other illness, there is cover for that student to travel home and be with their family. Okay, and with cancellation, this is there's a lot to cancellation, a huge amount. But if people buy or want to purchase the cancellation product we spoke about, that's 90 cents per day. So that's the only product that has this extra cover, we'll say. That would cover the student before they travel, and they could claim for falling ill with COVID-19, falling ill with any illness that stops them from being able to physically travel, if they have to quarantine or self-isolate, etc. Okay. The only thing with cancellation that wouldn't be covered is if the advice again changes from when the moment they book the policy to the day they're about to travel. If it changes and says, Spanish government say, do not go to Ireland, it's not safe, that wouldn't be covered. We spoke about that at the beginning of the presentation, so it remains the same, just something to note. And then just on the European Health Insurance Card, I recommend every person should have the European Health Insurance Card. It's a no-brainer. It should always be in your pocket when you're traveling around Europe. Just certain things that aren't covered with the European Health Insurance Card. The European Health Insurance Card is implemented differently across Europe. Italy and Spain appears to me to have more favorable use of the card than Irish people do. In Ireland, say, when an Italian or Spanish person visits Ireland, they have to pay for A&E costs and ambulance costs more often than not. In Ireland, I think when you go to Italy, we actually don't have to pay for them very often. So there are costs. It's different per jurisdiction how it's actually implemented. In Ireland, a student traveling from Spain will say, repatriation is obviously not covered. Benefits, the bit we pay them every night in hospital is not covered. Curtailment, if they have to cut short their trip, is not covered. Cancellation cover. COVID cover, we spoke about extending their stay because they got diagnosed, and then excess co-payments the student would have to pay for certain hospital costs, even with the EHIC card. So just things to be aware of there. And then just in terms of how to work with us, we can work with any school or agency in Spain, no matter where your students are traveling to, we can work with you. There's no contracts, there's no minimum quotas, we don't make you sign up to anything or purchase any amount, and we're very flexible in that regard to work with. You can purchase as you please. There's a dedicated secure portal, so we give you a link. We're quite big into security and data protection, so we'll give you a link, we'll know who's accessing, and you can take out your policies by one of two methods. It's really rather easy. One is an Excel form, you just complete and you upload it and you let us do all the hard work. It's only we need the students, very little information we look for, their name, date of birth, start and end date of the policy, and one or two other bits, and then we will process it for you. Or if there's a panic and you need it in an instant, you can actually take it out yourself. That's available too. And what will happen is then you'll get your ID card, and that's the ID card, the bit of paper that says a student has insurance in Ireland, and if they need it for immigration purposes, for example, that's vital. It's vital anyway for that student to show that, or just it's their proof. So that would be the bit that you would receive when everything is complete. Lastly, just about the support available. I mentioned we have a Canadian office. It's a real perk that we have Canada. They're 5 hours behind us. They're back to 5 hours now as of this week. So we have an administration team based there who work typically when Irish offices close at 5 and in Spain at 6. They're available and they're working. We also have an office space in Ireland and an office space in Spain as well. So there's quite a dedicated support line available to you. We have a colleague, Nicoletta, who's based in Spain. She would be working directly with the agents if they want to purchase directly from us. Nicoletta is there to help. She's wonderful. And I'm available in Ireland as well for anybody who needs me. So I'm conscious of time. I don't want to take up too much. If there's questions, I think we may be doing them at the end. I'm happy to take them at any stage. I'm going to hang around until the end of the webinar today, and I'm available. If anyone needs me, my details are here on the screen. I'm happy to share them with anyone. And if there's any questions or anybody wants to see our policies or just ask me anything at all, I'm more than happy to be available to them at any time. So that's
great, Martin. Thanks very much. And good to see the cover for travel for students in COVID. It's really important. Yeah, great, Mark. Thank you very much. Okay, next presentation then, if I can go following that to Alan, if that's all right, Alan at Atlas. We wanted to talk a little bit about travel updates to Ireland and students coming to Ireland regarding COVID at the moment, which follows on nicely to what Mark was talking about. So Alan, if it's all right with you, I'll come to you next if you can talk a bit about that now.
Sure. Do you want? I was going to do a quick overview of the protocols we have in place. Is that suitable? Yeah. Okay. I might just do that very quickly, and then if there's any
thanks, that's great.
Questions, we can take those, Patrick. I'll share my screen also. Can you all see that okay? Yeah, okay. So yeah, what I'll do is just give a very brief overview of the sector-wide protocols that we have developed over the past year, 18 months, and that are now, implemented in all MEI and Select Ireland schools. These came about last year when we were in negotiations with the government about reopening. I mean, an issue we had was the government were querying how we could ensure that all ELT providers would be able to open with a minimum standard. And I mean, some of the issues that we faced were that just the diversity of the industry, that we have so many different types of provider and student profiles. The fact that we were in a kind of gray area in terms of regulation. We're in between, we're still waiting for the new international education mark to come into effect. And then also just the nature of COVID itself, because it's just obviously the governmental policies and restrictions are changing so frequently. So what we did is we went away and we developed a suite of documentation for the sector. And we wanted this to be kind of, very standardized so that it could be rolled out across all providers. This will give you just a very brief idea of some of these sources and some of the background documents that we use to build out our own safety protocols. And there were three main strands to what we developed. The first was a response plan, which is an overarching document that outlines kind of some key principles and parameters for all ELT providers. It includes things like, some high-level policies around protection from and prevention of COVID, how to set up a response team, contact tracing, management, and investigation of suspected cases, and so on. All ELT providers and select schools have this as their base document. What we want to do then is, rather than just generalized documentation, we wanted to go above and beyond that to develop far more prescriptive and practical and useful documentation for all of our providers. So this risk assessment and compliance checklist is really the centerpiece document that schools in Ireland are using. As I say, it's a practical document, and it outlines all the different all the different protocols that schools need to implement to make sure that they're ensuring with that, ensure that they're complying with absolute best practice. What we did was took each school, and because it's very sector specific, so we looked at every single area that a school deals in. We are a very special and particular sector, so we wanted to design and develop protocols that were targeted specifically at the ELE sector. These are some of the categories that we looked at. So the compliance checklist is broken into these currently 14 categories, everything from reception, first day arrivals, office, staff room, classroom, dealing with under 18s, cleaning and disinfection, and so on. What the checklist does is it pulls out in each of those areas. There's specific line items. Currently, I think over 150 line items that every school needs to account for. Each line item has a person who's responsible for its implementation, evidence for its implementation. If the action needs to be reviewed, there's a review date, and then there's a RAG color code. So red, amber, green. Green meaning the line item is in place, amber that it's in process, and red that it's not in place. So obviously what we're expecting with all compliance checklists is that everything is green all the way down. So on top of that, we then developed some general protocol documents. These are around areas such as accommodation, airport pickups, again, under 18s, pre-arrival documentation that all students should receive. Again, all standardized and all designed specifically for our sector. On the accountability side, again, this was important. So how do we actually make sure that this is being done? It's self-assessment, but one of the safeguards that we built in is that it's signed off by multiple people within the organization, including a health and safety officer, a lead worker representative, which is somebody who's responsible for or a representative for non-management. Department heads were relevant, and then of course the school owner and director. So all of this has to be, it's very inclusive. It brings all, key workers into the documentation, and everyone has to sign off on the documentation to confirm that it's in place, that it's active, and that it's being maintained. So, again, we're kind of in a place now where, we're coming out of COVID, hopefully, and it is constantly evolving. But I think and this is just, it's one of the reasons I went through this very quickly. I think a lot of you may be up to speed with some or all of this, but I think in the main, what you can be assured of is that Irish schools and select schools are implementing some of the most rigorous and comprehensive COVID-19 risk prevention measures, anywhere. We'd be confident that these are the absolute highest standard, and that there's no other sector or no other ELE sector in other countries that is implementing anything that to this standard, or certainly that's higher than this standard. Some of the strengths of the approach, the model provides accountability because it brings in so many people. Again, very practical, very hands-on. We really got into the kind of nitty-gritty and got down into the specifics of the sector. It's independently reviewed with input from multiple stakeholders. It's adaptable, so these are living, breathing documents that are updated as regulations update, and it's comprehensive. So again, the protocols are set to a very high minimum standard. So that is, as I say, just a whirlwind kind of background of where we are now. In terms of Spain, I guess the you know, I mean, in some senses, it's fairly straightforward. We're on the EU digital COVID search, so Spanish visitors to Ireland, I guess, know the drill. As fellow EU citizens, we're following very similar regulations, and the EU COVID digital search is still being used, in widespread fashion here in Ireland. In terms of COVID cases, I mean, again, in Ireland, I think we have about 93 or 4% of the adult population is vaccinated. In Atlas here, we have 95% of our students are vaccinated. We've actually just introduced a mandatory vaccination policy for future bookings. So the risks and the how to deal with COVID cases are certainly diminishing if you take into account how many people are vaccinated, and also the COVID protocols that we have in place. It makes for a very safe environment for students across the board. And again, I think Ireland, with the vaccination rates we have and with the COVID-19 risk prevention measures we have in place, which are standardized across the board, it does make us one of, if not the safest destination for visitors, for ELE students who want to come here. Thanks, guys.
Great, Alan. Thank you very much for that. I think it outlines very well the procedures that are across the schools in Ireland and in the Select Ireland schools in terms of safety procedures. And also, just to mention that, Alan, you did a lot of work yourself in terms of writing those protocols, something that worked together. So thank you for that, and for that contribution that we're using across the different schools. Okay, if I can come back then just to link into Jonathan's comments regarding select schools. We'll move to Mark in Cork next, if I can. And Mark is just going to talk to us a little bit about the range of courses that are available in his school and across the select schools in Ireland, and just give a brief introduction to the kinds of courses that students could avail of if they're coming to study with us in Ireland. So Mark, if you're ready, can I pass across to you? You're just on mute there, Mark.
Right. Thank you very much. Just 1 second now, and I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. See, all right, okay. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Patrick. So I'd just like to give a quick overview of the courses and some of the programs that are run in some of the schools that are members of Select Ireland. It'll just be a quick overview, really. There are many other programs. If I was to go through every program that all of the schools offer, I would probably be here for another couple of days, but we'll just give a quick overview on it. So first of all, just regarding the locations, and I know we did an event this morning for Japan, and unfortunately I wasn't able to speak Japanese, so I had to do it in English. But if others don't mind, I'll continue this in Spanish for our Spanish colleagues. I have a couple of words, so Jonathan, you'll probably be correcting me, but anyway, here we go. Bueno, pues muchas gracias por venir esta tarde. Primero quiero hablar un poco sobre los colegios. Aquí tenemos los colegios de Select Ireland que están en Cork, en Dublín y en Galway. Aquí lo tengo puesto en el mapa. Hay ACET y Cork English College. Estamos aquí en Cork, en Dublín, ATC Atlas, Centre of English Studies, Emerald Cultural, Horner School of English, y en Galway, Atlantic y Bridge Mills. Así que más o menos tenéis una opción de colegios en distintas partes de Irlanda, en el este, el oeste y aquí en el sur. Todos los colegios de Select Ireland están acreditados por ACELS y o somos miembros de todas estas asociaciones o algunos. Algunos están acreditados por Equals, otros son miembros de IELC, otros miembros de Quality English, pero que sepáis que son colegios que realmente están establecidos en Irlanda desde hace muchos años, y sobre todo nuestra prioridad es calidad de los cursos y atención al servicio, atención al cliente, y aseguraros que los cursos que nosotros organizamos aquí en Irlanda, en todos los colegios, son cursos que están funcionando desde hace muchos años y para muchos años en el futuro. Entre todos los colegios que somos, tenéis opciones de hacer exámenes aquí mientras que estáis aquí en Irlanda o los alumnos están aquí. Estos son algunos de los exámenes: el Cambridge, IELTS, OET, Linguist Skill, Language Cert, el Trinity. Depende con el colegio. Hay algunos colegios que hacen más o menos, pero en cada ciudad, de las 3 ciudades, podéis hacer estos exámenes, que es lo importante. Y tenéis el apoyo de los colegios de Select Ireland, y entre nosotros también apoyamos uno al otro para alumnos que quieren hacer los exámenes. Así que lo tenéis seguro que si vuestros alumnos están estudiando en uno de nuestros colegios, tendrán la oportunidad de seguir y hacer algún examen internacional. ¿Alguna idea sobre los cursos? Bueno, aquí tenemos el inglés general, intensivo, inglés de negocios, inglés combinado, que son una mezcla de grupo y one-to-one, inglés individual, programas ejecutivos y otros para empresas cooperativos. Es una idea de los cursos. Por supuesto, cada centro y cada colegio tiene sus cursos específicos y tiene su formato, que sea 15 horas, 20 horas, 26 horas, 28 horas, depende. Cada uno de nosotros tenemos una cosa o algo un poco diferente, pero al final lo más importante es que son cursos de alta calidad, con profesorado cualificado y con edificios y colegios bien, con buenas instalaciones. Otros cursos que tenemos que son de mucho interés en España son los cursos de Erasmus Plus, que son los Teacher Trainer Courses. La mayoría de estos están en el verano, en el mes de julio y agosto, pero también hay otros cursos, depende del colegio, que toman lugar durante el año, que puede ser en invierno, en primavera, depende. Y si tenéis algún interés en alguno de los cursos y queréis información sobre los precios o las fechas, por favor se pone en contacto con los colegios mismos, con nosotros. Como he explicado antes, es posible de sentar para hacer los exámenes en cualquiera de las ciudades donde tenemos los colegios de Select Ireland. Pues claro que tenemos de los mejores cursos de preparación de exámenes. Es cierto que muchos de nuestros colegios tienen hasta examinadores que son profesores en los colegios, así que somos los mejores para hacer preparación para los cursos. El First Certificate, el Advanced, el Proficiency. Bueno, estos exámenes lo hacemos o en papel o también por ordenador. Depende de la ciudad, depende del colegio, pero tenéis muchas opciones. El TOEIC, el OET, que es el Occupational English Test, el IELTS, por supuesto, y el TOEL es el Test of Legal English. Hay otros exámenes. Esto simplemente es una selección corta para daros una idea de la calidad de los exámenes que se puede tomar aquí en nuestros colegios. También aparte tenemos inglés para inglés específico, de aviación, militar, preparación de las universidades o inglés médico. También, lo que he dicho antes, hay muchos más cursos y, por supuesto, lo que sería bueno es mirar la página web de Select Ireland, donde tenéis también todos los colegios de Select Ireland y también los enlaces para ir directamente a la página web de cada colegio. Para los adultos que están aquí estudiando con nosotros, en cada lugar tenemos opciones de alojamiento, familias que visitamos a nuestras propias familias. No contratamos a empresas de alojamiento, son nuestro propio staff que visita las familias y para ver que son de la calidad que nosotros esperamos. También tenemos apartamentos compartidos o residencias universitarias, apartamentos de lujo, depende. Realmente de lo que se busca un cliente, nosotros lo tendremos en algún sitio. Si no lo tenemos en Cork, lo tendrán en Dublín, y si no lo tienen en Dublín, seguramente que lo tienen en Galway. Y eso es lo bueno de Select Ireland, que podemos trabajar todos juntos. Para los jóvenes, tenéis una gran variedad de programas y muchos de los colegios que están aquí empezaron hace muchísimos años en el tema de los juniors, así que somos especialistas en juniors. Y eso es una cosa muy importante, como son menores de edad, los cursos de juniors normalmente toman lugar en julio o en agosto, sobre todo en julio, cuando la mitad de España quiere irse para Irlanda y está un español en cada familia, pero bueno, eso es otro asunto y otra discusión para otro día. Entre los colegios que están aquí hoy hay una mezcla de inglés con multiactividad, de fútbol con Valencia o con Juventus, rugby con Munster o con Leinster, y una variedad de otros cursos, equitación, música, deporte acuática, el inglés con STEM, que es ciencia, tecnología, ingeniero y matemáticas, y también programas para adultos jóvenes, quiero decir, los adultos o los jóvenes entre los 16 y 19 años que quieren venir en verano para hacer algún curso más intensivo, pero los padres prefieren que sea una cosa organizada, el Young Adult Program. Hablando de los programas de la pantalla antes de deporte, realmente aquí en Irlanda hay una gran variedad en todas las ciudades de cursos de inglés con deporte. Y en verano estos cursos se toman, todos los cursos de verano se toman o en campamentos con alojamiento en familia o en residencia. Y eso también se puede ver con cada colegio. También aquí tenemos el High School Year, que es el año escolar, cuando los alumnos pasan desde el primero de la ESO hasta segundo de bachiller, aquí con nosotros. Y eso ya es un programa que cada año tiene más éxito, pero nosotros no somos empresas que cogen gente en volumen, es más dar una calidad, un programa de mejor calidad. El Winter Mini Stay son los programas de colegios, viajes de estudios de una semana, y estos normalmente se toman lugar pues, sobre estas fechas ahora mismo o en primavera. Ahora con COVID, pues un poco menos que otros años, pero bueno, sí, todavía lo estamos ofreciendo. Aparte, eso ya es todo. Thank you very much for listening to my quick description of the language courses. Much faster than usual, because simply when I talk in Spanish, I speak faster anyway. And if anybody does have any questions, aquí tenemos la página web de Select Ireland, selectireland.com, y info@selectireland.com es el email, y el mío es Mark at Cork English College. All right. Thank you very much, Patrick.
Mark, thank you. That was an express presentation.
Short and sweet.
Short and sweet, well done, well said. Okay, just finally then, I just wanted to finish up just to talk about some of the academic events that Select have been involved in and will be involved in next year. In terms of some of the activities that we have done this past year, as Jonathan had said in his opening comments, Select Ireland was formed, but because of COVID, we had to suspend a lot of the things that we wanted to do, but we were still at work in the background, cooperating with each other and building bridges between the different schools, and also between the academic teams within the schools. A couple of the events that we completed this year that I would just like to mention. In June, we had in-house training for Select sales staff, because we wanted to keep in touch with our sales teams, train them up and make them ready for engagement with agencies like yourselves in 2022. We also, with the help of Gardby and Mark, who's on the call here today, we had a staff welfare day on the 9th of April, where we had training for our own Select staff regarding their welfare, because a lot of people were working online, working remotely from home, and thankfully we're back in the office now, but it was very useful at that time to provide support for our staff. And in in February of 2021, we did an academic training day. This was with the support of Cambridge English Language Assessment and Equals. We had 50 attendees attending from 30 different organizations across Europe, and also attendees coming from Turkey, Tunisia, Russia, and Egypt. These were people who were working in English language education and training. They were based in universities, language schools, and training centers. And in 2022, our plan is to run another academic event, but this time we're going to run it across the entire year. And I just want to share with you an example of the plans for 2022. So using the resources within Select Ireland and the strong academic teams that work within our schools, we've put together a 9-module training program, which will be available for teachers across all networks. And we would encourage agencies to invite teachers that you may be working with, or teachers that may be sending groups of students to Ireland, to attend these events. All of the events will be free of charge to attend. We'll be sending out information about them, and they cover a wide range of academic topics, both in terms of traditional learning and e-learning, and they cover a wide range of resources the teachers might be able to exploit for working in their classrooms, whether they're teaching English to juniors, teaching English to adults, or working with other programs. You can see here from the list that not only do we have representatives from each of the Select Ireland schools and the academic teams within those schools, but we also have different topics each month which we can bring to you with different information and resources. And there's a whole wide range of topics there. If I can just focus perhaps on, for example, in November at Cork English College, there we have a presentation on CLIL and CLIL approaches in the classroom. And this links in quite well with teachers who are attending Erasmus programs. And we're very interested across the Select Schools network to encourage more Erasmus travel. As the UK is now not open to Erasmus students, we would hope that in our end we'll be able to offer programs that will be suitable for many schools and agencies that perhaps would have worked with the UK in the past, but are now looking to direct students to Ireland. We also have, for example, in my own school in June, a program on 21st century skills, and that's also a useful one with regard to Erasmus programs and training. But you can see there's a wide variety of topics, including vocabulary teaching, which we have at ATC in Dublin, or looking at critical thinking within the classroom, for example, with Atlas Language School in March. This schedule will be posted on the Select website, but we'll also circulate it to everybody after this. And the links for each of these events will be circulated early next year. We would encourage teachers, trainers, people working in the university sector, in private language schools, teaching juniors or adults, to come along and attend. Each of the events is independent of the other, so if you miss one, you are welcome to attend some of the other ones. But of course, we would like to build a community of learning across all of the Select schools and also with our partners around the world, including Spain, and we would encourage people to attend as many of these as possible, and bearing in mind that all of these are free events that we're offering in 2022. So I hope that gives you a taste of some of the academic decisions and achievements that we would like to have for Select in 2022, apart from the marketing events and other events that we would like to hold as we develop as an organization together. Okay, finally then, if I could just say thank you to Mark Sheeran at GuardMe for coming along today and giving a presentation. Thanks to the Select schools who are present here today. In Galway, we have Atlantic Language Galway, myself at Bridgman's Galway Language Centre. In Cork, we have Cork English College. Thanks to Mark for your presentation, and ACET. And in Dublin, we have Atlas School in Dublin. Alan, thank you for your presentation today. ATC, our opening comments from Jonathan at Centre of English Studies, Emerald Cultural Institute, and the Horner School in Dublin. Also special thanks to Raoul at Enterprise Ireland in Madrid, who helped me today to organise this event. He's also given me the contact details for people who are going to be watching this, not live, but afterwards. And so we will be circulating a recording of this event out to you afterwards, along with the information that was contained. We would invite you then to any questions that you have to send them to us at Select Ireland at our email address, check us out on our website, or contact any of the individual schools on today's event. Thank you all very much for coming on today. I'll see you soon.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Patrick. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.